Okay.
Of the recording. Da, da, da. Um, Lovely.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess I could just do a quick presentation. So yeah, welcome everyone. This is BabbleBones, who, well, I guess have seen in the description, is working on some very interesting stuff about open source VR, and like VR runtimes and XR runtimes, I guess, as far as I know. And yeah, so he's just gonna like tell us a bit about it, so we can also like get to show what he's working on to more people, and show what it is. And then yeah, sorry. And then yeah, we can just have some little discussion about it.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you for.
Hey, so I wanted to give a demo of what we've currently got set up. So what I'm using right now, you can see how I'm being tracked and everything like that, is actually completely open source XR runtime. The trackers, that was kind of a recent development. We had those always available technically, but we didn't actually have full body tracking available for the OpenVR interface. Uh, we're actually doing several things here. So we have a driver called Monado, which runs everything you're seeing here, and it provides a OpenXR API that any application can use to get its necessary VR bits. And it does everything standard you'd expect on a OpenXR API. It's got a fair amount of drivers. Featured here is the index hardware. So I've got index knuckles, I've got index headset, and I've got the Vive trackers. The Lighthouse tracking itself is actually open source as well. We've got something called libsurvive, and that entire driver lets you. It's I don't have the licensing on hand for the code, but I do know it's open source. You can use it for whatever purpose you want to. It's written in C primarily. Uh, you can basically have at it with any sort of equipment that you're loading these little tracker diodes into and performing spatial calculations. And as far as the actual runtime itself, it boots up, it probes for the hardware, pulls it up, and then gets you an OpenXR API that you can use. It runs on Linux primarily, Windows. It also runs on Mac OS soon. We've actually got some patches filtering in
Mm.
from a particular contributor, and they are hoping to have macOS compiling and running shortly, so everybody can use it. There's Android too, so if you do have an Android headset, we do have stuff for that as well. It's yeah, I mean, code is MIT. You can use it for whatever purpose you want. The whole goal is to get a open implementation out and into the wild for people to use. And yeah, these there is a next step which I actually had to use to get in-game, which is OpenVR. That is a conversion layer, so it converts the OpenVR calls to OpenXR, and therefore you can support legacy apps like VR Chat just natively in it. No trouble involved.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So, so,
Uh,
so this is like
mhm.
implementing or like doing an implementation for the OpenXR runtime for all these kind of platforms, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah. And then on top of that, you can throw a little OpenVR translation layer on there, and you can play all the standard games. If there's any apps that are still requiring OpenVR to operate, and there's quite a few out there still. It's a big problem with the Unity transition because a lot of these things are written on Unity still. So, and they will continue to be for quite some time.
The latest Unities are also transitioning to OpenXR, as far as I know, right?
Yep. A lot of developers have been holding off because of that specifically. A lot of work is involved to actually port it over. So, they're not they're giving it a rest before they start. And the goal here is that with this kind of setup, it's extremely important that the implementation itself of what you're doing is open, because we have a lot of open interfaces out there right now. Like OpenVR is just an open interface. The actual OpenVR drivers, closed source. They let the end consumer, a lot of the developers interface directly with it. You get a fair amount of low-level information. You can mess with it how you please, but there are some restrictions on use, and there are some restrictions on what you can do with it because it's proprietary. This format, you can freely load this code on whatever you want. It's basically a 90% of the way there kit that you just pick up, make a few modifications to, and then you can drop it into your system and be up and running. And the most important part here is, of course, that the implementation is open source. Because one of the problems about XR, VR actually catching on in general is availability and accessibility is exceptionally poor for how it's developed so far. A lot of this hardware is modestly generic even. I mean, this lighthouse tracking, it just works. You throw a device at it and it works the way it's been designed. But we've got that problem where everyone seems to be designing their own in-house implementations. And you even see this among smaller hardware developers, for instance. Like a lot of these companies come up with the idea for a new body tracker. They come up with an idea for an open source IMU body tracker. Strap it to, run it, and then you can get in. And you see this quite frequently where the drivers are not very high quality. And you can in fact beat them out with Slime VR for cheaper even. And you see these
drivers, if I understand correctly, that people make.
Yep.
And you say
but you can they don't get you quite the same results as the as Slime VR does, just because of its enormous code contributions. It's basically developed in much faster time and with a much higher quality, higher featured code base than a lot of other developers can just put out on their own time. And so that's kind of where these open implementations come from. It's just a way to get it out there, get developers to use it, and get developers to benefit from this code. And it's a way of just making everything more accessible. Because when you have open code...
Are you saying that with open implementation, like making drivers for it will be easier than...
Yeah, totally. Yes, you've got all of the code available to you. So if you want to implement a particular thing, you can basically just pull the repo, make some additions, and then you can push that code out there. If you're a hardware developer, you can actually get your hardware out working on a much higher number of systems than you could by simply pushing a SteamVR driver. The SteamVR driver is one of the elements. There's still a lot of people using SteamVR because it's got a lot of nice features. But there are a number of I guess, interesting edge cases and people working on incredibly fun bits. And you can get your hardware out into the world. You can get people testing your hardware on much crazier systems. So, uh, it's one of the other issues we've been having is you've got a lot of there's a lot of legacy. There's a lot of things that probably shouldn't be done the way that they're done, and you see the pattern just kind of errantly stolen. It's a bad idea that kind of rolls downhill. Other people take it on, and they it kind of gets repeated, and there's not a lot of iteration. There's no one in the space allowed to come in and make additions to your driver and fix certain facets of it, and then to just push that out to the world and let everyone have it. So a lot of this,
are closed source.
yeah, they're just kind of left in the state that they're released in, and that's where they sit today. So it just kind of ruins the future integration of a lot of these pieces. And we could have quite a better system. I think that people are going to go through this journey of slowly figuring out that we should be producing an open standard, like an open implementation that everyone is free to use. That includes corporations, that includes individuals. So if you want some MIT code and you want to start hacking away, go for it. That is that's your go ahead to have fun with it. So, got a question from Matthew.
Oh yeah, they're writing something.
Sure. Oh. Oh, hey. So, it's yeah. I mean, this system is, you can replicate this. Oh yeah. Go ahead if you have a question.
Yeah, I was actually looking at slimes actually recently, and you can like do some stuff with Go Loco and stuff, and I've just found out how to do that. And I'm quite interested. Like, I've seen like you can make slimes yourself, can't you? And you can also buy them pre-made, can't you? As well.
Yes. I do actually. I have built a few myself, and yeah, people seem to enjoy them. The calibration's a little bit of an issue. You do have to customize them per your body, but once you do have them customized, those things are ironclad as far as their functionality.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the issues here is that we actually don't have enough people on the Monado stack. We'd like to kind of get more hacking and playing with it and trying it out. So we actually had some contributors. Gabmus in particular produced a orchestration UI, which we can actually use. So you can load this one on, use Meson to build it, and it will actually download the source code of Monado, configure and build it. It will download the source code of OpenComposite, configure and build it, and then it will drop you an environment variable you can give to your Steam game, and you can be up and running in just probably under half an hour. There's still some bugs to work out. Not we don't have a large fleet of testers running it so far, but thus far it's actually been incredibly high quality, and it is currently running on my system and actually orchestrating this setup. What's your question?
Oh wait.
Don't have?
I wanted no idea.
Oh, sorry. Gotcha. Yeah. So we, if you want, I can actually toss you the source code of this application. It's really only running on Linux right now. The drivers, the setup, everything involved. We've only verified that it can run on a Linux system currently. which is what I've got beside me right now. It's just a laptop hybrid GPU setup. Runs just fine. And yeah. The interest was I did see that like the Somnium group was interested in pushing out their own hardware, and I would be curious if a Monado driver would be on the table for that particular hardware.
I'm pretty sure it will be on the table. The other thing I want to say is the Somnium is switching to OpenXR, so I guess we are one of the people who are actually doing the work, like because we're uploading to the latest Unity, and
Okay.
we're going to OpenXR. Yeah, so maybe that will help some things. Yeah, I mean, as for the driver, I can't say, but I mean, I'm sure they will be open for it. I don't know what will be involved exactly, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, my goal here is just to kind of get the word out to people and see if we can actually bootstrap more of an open future than leaving everything kind of jammed into these closed source runtimes and just it's compactifying the experience everywhere. There's just simply less you can legally do with it and less you can physically do with it, because when you can't tweak the implementation to how you need it to function, you're effectively just locked out. It might be true that you don't necessarily have the skill to modify the implementation, but if the source code is out there, the opportunity does exist, and that's one of the most important parts that we're trying to make available. Yeah, and if you... Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, like, I just, like, think this is very interesting and have, like, quite a few questions in mind, but, like, one is just like a dumb question which we were talking earlier, but like, so like, will it be feasible to like run VR chat on a Mac? I mean, I know you were talking about some people doing Proton, but like, I just wanted to make sure like how far that is along, like if you know.
As far as I know, the patches are pretty late along, so when those patches are made available to actually run Monado, you would only need several things to actually do it. Assuming that you could run VR chat in OpenComposite, which is our OpenVR to OpenXR translation layer, and assuming VR chat runs in Proton on that Mac, and as long as you can run these Lighthouse drivers, and those patches are added to Monado, yeah, this is actually quite doable.
Depends on the patches that are added, and you say it depends on the particular Mac hardware, because you say like Proton may work or not depending on the Mac.
Yeah, I know that Valve is a little iffy on supporting it or not. I've never actually used it directly on a Mac myself, not to mention an M1 specifically. But there's nothing that says you can't with a few tweaks of the source code itself. A lot of these projects, if they don't already run, they would need a few contributions, and then they...
I guess the trick is like knowing which few tweaks to do, which may not be totally obvious.
Yep, it's going to need some skills to bring that function up. But yeah, the basic idea is that you can basically make this like royalty free, available to everyone. So if someone in the world wants to use your hardware for a particular purpose, they will get to do that. It's the most important thing, is you're exposing the implementation of your XR devices to someone who wants to use it, and not just exposing an interface to somebody else's implementation and just kind of, you know, punting that off and just pushing out some hardware for a one of it. If repairability, serviceability, usability is a concern down the road, at least sparing some for the open implementation is probably a good idea. And yeah, we're kind of all here for it. So, any Any particular
Yeah, I have
questions
a
about the
question
setup
actually.
or? Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of get how OpenXR works for like interoperability on the software side, but I don't really get how you're supposed to like how it works for hardware. Like, do you have to write your own driver for headsets you're making? Is this something
Yep.
that's like does Monado have to write specific cases for like every headset, or is it handled by the manufacturer?
Well, it depends on the headset in particular. Bringing up Lighthouse tracked headsets is it's not that hard, all things considered. It really just needs kind of like some specs of your headset dialed into the runtime. So like distortion, the resolution. It needs a bring up, so when to actually wake up the display on your headset and to start tracking it. Maybe some IMU data if you use a particular IMU and you want to calibrate that properly. But yeah, if you dial in a few values, detect your headset, you can send it and let it run just as it normally would.
Okay, so this is so if you were to write something like this, would you write it for Monado or for OpenXR?
For Monado specifically,
Okay.
it would basically be a implementation of how to utilize or like how to talk to your hardware. So you've got the headset loaded with the firmware. You're just sending it USB packets to make it do its thing, and any sort of tunables along the way. Usually the acceptable route is to specify an environment variable when Monado is started currently. And in that fashion, you can basically make an implementation of your hardware available to anyone in the world who wants it.
So like right now, if like people
Okay, thank
making
you.
new headsets, sorry, like like are doing like
Mhm.
Steam VR. Uh, I mean, like people who are making new headsets, a lot of the time they make them Steam VR compatible, right? So like that means like people can write that. I guess that's part of the Steam VR API, right? Like the fact that they can do that. Um,
Yep, yep. They provide the interface for you to actually. So you would write your own closed source implementation. Typically, Slime VR is the exception. They actually have an open implementation of their trackers, and then they take that open implementation and they hook it to the Steam VR interface, and that's how they hook it up. With this in particular, you can actually just take your implementation and you can plug that directly into Monado itself as a driver, and you can serve up your headset to whatever XR application is looking to use your hardware. So,
mm. So like what it says like for the hardware developers, the workflow will be quite similar, and the main difference is that the actual runtime itself is open source as well. Is that?
yeah, yeah. You've got your implementation as a driver in Monado of your headset, and then from there you can even mess with the OpenXR implementation. So if you do want to make modifications to it, totally free to. The code being MIT gives you total freedom with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I also had another
And
question,
yeah.
which is like regarding like standalone headsets. How do things work with
Mm.
that? So like,
Uh, okay. So they do have a solution to standalone headsets. The standard standalone headset is loaded with Android, and it's running just some of its own compositor in the headset. It's doing all the compositing. It's doing everything inside of itself with its own OpenXR closed source runtime,
right?
almost on the regular. With those headsets in particular, we can actually do a similar thing that ALVR does. So, or AirLink, we can just take a Monado instance on your PC, and we
Mm-hmm.
can forward all of those frames and all of that tracking data directly across a pipe over the wireless network to a client on your headset. so we can actually serve up those desktop applications in a similar fashion.
But on the
So,
headset itself, it will be using
mhm.
the sort of closed source OpenXR runtime.
Yes.
So it will be, as you said, like very similar to ALVR.
Yep.
But like my question
It
will be like, is there something to like that one like we could do like to make like some like basically like an open source runtime that is actually in the standalone components. So like if you don't have a PC.
Oh, yes. We are actually working on something akin to that. We're trying to build a general spatial UX for such a system. And the idea here would be that you can take any standard Linux kernel. You can load it up in the fashion that you would normally expect on like a GNU PC. You can put that in the headset, and you can run this open implementation. It's slow going, but the effort is there. There's quite a lot of people working on that at the moment, and I wouldn't expect it soon, but we're trying to get something up and something visible, because the way that these Android headsets are done right now, it's clearly not preferential.
And will that be running on Android? If sorry, I missed that, or is this?
No.
Oh,
This will be a full GNU system in a headset. In fact, you could use this as a computer.
so
Is the idea?
it will be like it's on like it will be like substituting the operating system in the headset.
Yeah. Basically, the operating system is just an open one, in a similar fashion to the Steam Deck. Has its own GNU operating system on there. It's just they have SteamOS loaded on there. We could make a headset operating system. Simple as. Just have to load up the right spatial components on there. Have the XR runtime work. Maybe some desktop interface so that you could use it with any standard computer. And there you go.
Wow, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and the whole idea is it would be just as readily modifiable and configurable as a desktop PC. So it wouldn't trap users in this Android space we currently have, where we had these closed source, kind of privacy violating headsets. You know the standard concerns. Everything inside of it is locked down. There's no real opportunity to even mess with the cameras of the Quest. That's one of the big concerns a lot of developers have. Yeah.
XR is sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
XR is like putting something in the virtual world, isn't it? So it's not so much full body tracking. It's basically mixing the real world with virtual world. Is that right?
Yeah. And I can tell you, we will need open implementations to make that happen, because there is not going to be a mixture that works for everyone. One of the major things we've learned, just kind of picking this apart, discussing it like over and over again, is that we can't make a one-size-fits-all solution. The Quest is a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a headset with the trackers. It gives you an interface. The entire implementation is closed and boxed off from you. So it means that you can't tweak it in the ways that matter to the end user. You can't fundamentally make it viable to them as a productivity device, because they can't actually choose how they're productive with it. It's all in Facebook's domain. It's all in Meta's domain. They have to take care of that, and you're gated out from it. Yeah. So one of the huge things that we realized early on is that you must open the implementation if you would like it to be used in any serious manner. That way, anyone who needs a particular facet can implement that object, and then they can just let it ride. They can return it to the primary repository, and then everyone can benefit from it.
I guess you can see an example of this as in how Linux, I mean, even though it's not like like dominant in like most cases, but like is kind of dominant in like certain domains where you need like high performance, like kind of certain professional domains and stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. It's you've probably seen the debacle with NVIDIA finally releasing their open source driver. It took them almost 20 long years to figure out that the guys who operated the server farms running machine learning would start switching to AMD, even though AMD has a massive tidal wave of extra issues that come with it as far as machine learning is concerned. Doesn't always work. It's got trouble essentially, but they were willing to switch away from NVIDIA simply for the fact that NVIDIA provides you a closed source implementation of their drivers, and they gate you out of designing a open implementation of those drivers legally and physically. And NVIDIA broke finally somewhere around 2020 and decided they would produce an open implementation of their drivers, because they were about to just gush market share out to AMD from the various issues they had.
People can write drivers if they want now for it. Is that like now?
Yeah, there's one major driver in progress. The New View project is finally getting the documentation and the source code that they actually need to fix it up. And they're creating a NVK user space driver that will enable Vulkan to work on the open drivers. And once they have that, you can boot up a standard NVIDIA GPU computer, same as you normally would, and you'll be able to use it like Linux. They're way behind. It's going to take them an incredible amount of time to write this driver, just because NVIDIA has been stymieing them for so long that it's just set them back progress-wise. So, AMD runs right now, but NVIDIA will possibly, be flawless open source in the future. We're kind of stuck in that middle ground. But it's kind of a parable for the XR space as well. This will be open sourced eventually. It's just a matter of, do you kind of want to preempt that and roll with the tide here, or do you kind of want to fight it, produce these closed source implementations, make your hardware more locked down in the long term, and you have to go through the painstaking process of people just detangling it down the line if it's even still available or if it's been turned into e-waste.
From what you're saying, like what NVIDIA should do is just open source their existing drivers, right?
They can't. There's a lot of code inside of there that they physically can't. So I'm sure they
What do you mean by that?
it's probably a similar situation with most of these runtimes, but various companies come together to produce these things, and they have a lot of closed source code mixed in. If there's no business obligations or legal obligations for you to keep something closed source, it should be open sourced. Is the thinking, simply because it's better for your customers involved, and it's honestly just better for the actual business venture involved.
Why NVIDIA couldn't open source the drivers? I suppose they fully own them, right?
It took them a while to figure it out, and I'm sure it took them even longer on how to actually figure out how they wanted to figure it out. It's one of those things where you have to untangle all of the stuff that you have built up over years and years, all these legal obligations, and get it kind of worked out, and then in a state where you can actually share your source code. A lot of people don't produce source code in a vacuum. They just kind of work on it with partners, and all of those partners have to sign off on it. Everyone who wrote that stuff has to say yes.
And they may use non-open source components in it and stuff like this, and who knows what.
Oh yes, it's a major issue in BIOSes as well, stuff like that. But that's a different topic. But yeah, we're just stuck in this limbo with all this hardware, and the basic idea is that the more people we can get on board with the XR system, even the more people we can get hacking around with it. So for instance, our runtime right now, Rex, or our orchestration UI Rex. It is designed to grab you the source code, build it in your home folder, and then have it ready to use. So you can go into those source code folders and you can start hacking immediately if you want. The idea is we give people first access to a known good configuration for a Valve index, for a Quest, for a Pico 3 and 4. And then we just say, have at it. Here's the source code. You can hack. If you want to add a particular functionality, it's right there for you. And we even have a rebuild button up in the corner, so you can just tap that, let it rebuild if you don't know how to build the project yourself. And, it just kind of enables developers to just more quickly absorb the runtime and start messing with it. That's one of our primary goals, is to just get people onboarded here and actually using it. There's a whole host of issues we've yet to work out, but as you can see, it's usable in its current state. I can hop in a game, and it's got less friction than SteamVR to start currently, I can say. One of the problems I've had with SteamVR itself is, I'm fairly certain a lot of you know about the issue of actually getting a working startup on SteamVR. It's not always consistent. Like, you're trying to turn on your trackers, you turn on your controllers, you're trying to get them to work. Stuff doesn't always pair.
I never had issues like that.
Usually
It just
works
walks
just fine
for
you.
me. It just walks.
Okay. Fine. It's it depends on your setup. It depends on the person. But I have had troubles with setup in the past, even on. yeah. Even on Windows, I have had problems with stuff like this full body. On the open runtime, it's pretty bulletproof. You start it, the prober runs, detects your hardware, it builds out just a XR runtime, and it fills it with all your hardware and lets the application start interacting.
And like
Huh?
this Monado implementation already works well on Linux and Windows, right? You said, I find.
It works well on Linux currently. Windows is a little less tested. There is code available in the repo. They're not doing anything to stymie a particular use case. They're trying to actually actively enable for Windows. It's just being developed first and foremost for Linux because that's the easiest they can possibly deploy it on.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'm sort of curious
yeah.
to try how well Linux, like VR in Linux.
Are you running Linux right now?
Yeah. I have a Gen 2 machine here. This is a full AMD system. It's actually got a hybrid. It's just a standard laptop, Asus gaming laptop, full AMD, and the whole system is compiled from source. I do that simply because it lets me tweak and mess with things a lot easier than if I had to use binary packaging. And I've played with it to the point where we got this up and running. And
That's
now
interesting.
we're really...
Normally, I would not wish VR on Linux on my worst enemy.
It has been particularly awful, but only because the SteamVR support has not been great. It's they currently have troubles with their compositor, so it will just misproject frames randomly.
Oh no, I always had input issues. My inputs, even head movements and shit, were lagging so far behind I would throw up from motion sickness.
Yep, it's some of those issues have been solved, but the primary issue underlying everything is that it simply reprojects frames wrong. It will give you a frame you saw 200 milliseconds ago just out of the blue. So you're moving your head and motion sickness like crazy. It is terrible. The nice thing about Monado is they have gotten pretty good at the setup and breakdown. So you fire it up, it runs low latency. It's good. It's smooth. We had to make a few tweaks along the way we did integrate those with Rex. So now the UI element is actively accounting for some things. It's like pushing you a good, known, working setup that won't make you throw up, is the idea.
I hope so.
There are many ways to break things, but the basic idea is we get someone a system that we know for sure works. We start them out with that, and then they can hack there as they please.
But you also keep saying OpenXR is so much better than OpenVR, but I'm pretty sure the chill out VR developers would want to disagree with you right now.
Oh, well, I won't claim any particular API is better. In fact, I know some sticking points with OpenXR directly over OpenVR, especially overlay related. However, the actual implementation of it is open, so that is the benefit. I will not make any claims as to which one is necessarily better for the end user, because I don't have a lot of experience actually developing the apps that utilize those APIs.
Yeah, they couldn't get full body tracking to work correctly anymore in OpenXR.
Ooh. Yeah. It's, well, we do have some bits here that are running it. Actually, yeah, there's major contentions around extensions and stuff like that. Every vendor wants to make their own skeleton for full body. Every vendor wants to do it their way. Nobody wants to work together to produce a solution.
Wait, but that seems like an important thing to agree upon, right?
Oh yes, it's kind of a collaboration of everyone involved. If you really want to, for Monado itself, the fun thing is, because it's an open implementation, you can actually do what you please. So if you do need to make a tweak, that tweak can be made. So if you need a full body, for instance, I'm actually using my own forked branch of it right now.
But like
We had to make a few changes that they...
basic full
Yeah,
body
yeah.
in a runtime seems to me like it's just like providing to the application just like the transform of the trackers, right? That doesn't sound like it needs anything fancy. I mean,
No,
what's
no.
the...
It depends. For this particular instance, I'm actually doing exactly that. This is a branch that assigns just some roles to the trackers, passes them through, and then just treats them like tracked points. Gives them to VRChat in a way that VRChat finds acceptable on the OpenVR interface, and it works. There are more complicated solutions. So you can actually provide a like a full body IK to the application. So like you actually have a skeletal model.
Right.
And instead of VRChat doing the IK solving like it does internally.
Does VRChat even support that?
Oh.
Like...
No, it does not. In fact, it only supports tracked points,
Yeah, I mean,
which is why it's being done the
that's what I
particular
would
way that it's being done.
expect. So like it seems to me like at this current state,
Mhm.
like most apps will just support what you have right now, right? But I guess people want
Oh,
to
yeah.
go to the kind of thing there, like the sort of next step will be what you're talking about.
Yep. We can have more unified standards. The whole method for it, by which if you didn't want to use tracked points and you had a particular application you actually wanted to enable, like the runtime to handle the skeletal solving, you could do that, and then you could pass that extension. Have the application consume it, and you could use that. Like I said, I'm using a forked version of Monado to run my own particular stuff. They have some contentions about the what do you call it? The implementation of how this is done. It's all solvable, of course, but I don't exactly have the aptitude for necessarily modifying this in the ways that they please right yet. I would like to upstream this so everyone can benefit from these tracked points. There's just some changes. It's mostly preliminary, is what I've got running here. So yeah, once the source code is cleaned up, I'd just like to get that upstream, get everyone on it if they want to use it.
Earlier, I think you talked about ALVR. Is it working with Monado now?
Not yet. They would kind of like to make an interface. I think they have something called ALXR that works with like general OpenXR calls. I'm a little fuzzier on how all that works because I don't exactly have a wireless headset to test. There are several people in our group who are testing and using some wireless headsets. But we do, like I said, have orchestration setups for the Quest and the Pico 3 and 4. And they're using something called Wyvern to do it, which is a wireless VR 0. If I remember correctly, might not be 100% on that, but it's basically just an in-tree Monado driver that lets you shoot frames to the Quest or the Pico headset wirelessly, and use it exactly as you'd expect.
Wait, what's the name of this again? Because I would love to try Monado, but I only have a Quest 2, so I thought I could.
Oh. What kind of headset do you have?
I have a Quest 2, and I'm running on Linux, so the only option is ALVR. I mean, it's the only one I knew about, at least.
Oh, okay. If I'll be sharing the source code of Rex. If you contact me directly over Discord, I can send you the repo links necessary. I can even invite you into the groups if you wanna.
Oh yeah, definitely. That'd be sweet.
Yeah. We answer any questions you need. So if you have setup questions, our biggest goal is to just get this out there, get people using it, and most importantly, get people hacking on it. We'd like contributors who can just try it out, find what they don't like, contribute some code, and see if we can get some fixes in.
Yeah, that.
So,
Yeah. Have you?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Have you the Sony's Mo copy trackers that are coming out? They're making them. So you have basically a case that charges them all, and you don't have to charge them individually. And then they've got an app that goes with it, and you can import a model that runs on Android, and you can go around mobile and track and record movements like in real life as you're going about, and you can also pair them to the Quest directly somehow. And they compared it to the slime, and they said, yeah, there's a latency because of the software in there, and the slime's are better in that for latency. But there is something you can do with a Raspberry Pi or Linux or any Linux machine, as you were saying, to turn the Sony's trackers into slimes effectively, so they will actually act like slimes. You would get better or less latency.
So
I've just
well, that is implementation space.
Yeah.
It's you could, so assuming the developer of that particular hardware has an interest in opening their implementation, they could provide that to people, or somebody wants to figure out how those things work, open the implementation. Latency is always something that can be accounted for with filtering. There's no doubt this has been a little jittery because I'm using completely reverse engineered drivers, so you can expect the solution to not be perfect. We've got an upcoming kind of machine learning thing we want to try with the solver for the lighthouse tracking to make it smoother and higher quality. But barring that, yeah, it's always something that can be accounted for in software. So if you've got a particular latency coming out of a unit, you just have to apply a filter and figure out if you need to accelerate ahead, go behind, smooth things out. You know, if you're getting particular jitters that aren't really desired, you can do something about that. And if you're getting higher latency than expected, you can make predictions into the future. You just need an implementation which you can actually freely tweak and figure out the right algorithm, figure out the right settings.
Yeah, I think they said something about like it was getting information from the headset positioning as well as the headset's own controllers. And it doesn't need to do that. You can just literally just get it. 'Cause you can get you basically just use only the information you need, and you don't need to get it twice apparently, and that can slow down the limitation.
Interesting. Well, I'm
Mm.
not quite sure what they mean by that, but it might be using just the relative tracking space of the headset itself.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah,
maybe
'cause
seen
I think the way that-
Seeker's video about
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I think I did. Yes,
Yeah, I
it
think,
was
I think I see what you
Real
mean.
Seeker. Yeah, that is. Yeah, so they have a head. They have like a head tracker, so you don't
Yeah.
need to track the head because the headset's already doing it.
This is the thing about when they talk about slime is that basically slime VR works by inverse. Is it inverse kinematics? Is it no? It's forward kinematics. It's like basically the software knows where your head is, where your hands are, and it uses the IMUs to like guess where's your elbow in relation to your head and hand and head.
Yeah,
And so
okay.
the default implementation of Sony basically doesn't know where your hand and head is, so you have to have a tracker on your hand, and it's not useful if you're in VR. And
Okay.
I don't know where I don't really know how to clarify this actually. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Oh,
I think I
yes.
do,
I
yes.
think I lost myself a bit. Sorry.
I mean, that's fairly standard. The nice thing about a open implementation, for instance, I know that the ALVR guys have to do some interesting. They've got some interesting workarounds for elements of SteamVR because the implementation is not open and they're using a open interface to a closed implementation. They have to get info from SteamVR that SteamVR will not provide over the interface. So I saw in one particular instance they were doing some very hacky kind of stack stuff to kind of rip out the information from SteamVR that they needed and use it properly. And that's one of the things that an open implementation prevents. So it just leads to less software breakage because if you need an interface for something, it's there. Just go into the implementation, tweak it a little, give yourself an interface, and use it. When everything's open, it's open for hacking. You don't have to mess around with this stuff anymore, where you have to scrounge through a binary and find what you need in memory, and you don't have to do strange alien stuff with it anymore. You can just talk to the software as is intended.
Yeah, that's much nice.
So, yeah, that's Ooh, any other questions or concerns? We could leave on a high note, or I could talk about the downsides of the particular runtime. Because we can be generous with it, but we can also discuss a few of the limitations that are involved currently. It's all solvable, but it will take time and it will take effort to solve. Works as is, but it does come with some caveats there.
Sure, I mean, I think we can
okay.
hear some of the limitations.
Okay. There's a notable lack of hot plugging, actually, and even replugging. So device dropouts will not be recovered, and you have to restart the runtime as it currently exists. So it's usable for a one-off session when you want to jump in, but you just have to make sure not to stray too far and let your Lighthouse-tracked hardware walk away from the radio interface. If it gets too far away, your stuff will drop out, and you are just going to have to restart your session and come back in to actually have it reconnect. It's kind of how the runtime is designed. It's got those limitations in there right now. It just kind of scans through, finds your hardware, sets up the system, and then just lets it run. It doesn't do any management of the system after it's set up. All the setup is done in the first 200 milliseconds of runtime.
I mean, it seems like
so.
you should have like just something that checks regularly or something, right?
Ah, we could. It just needs someone to build out an implementation to handle device reconnects, device disconnects, shutdowns. It's kind of a result of just not a lot of hardware being implemented, so the need was never really there. It was all about turning on the hardware. It wasn't about turning off the hardware.
Yeah.
So
Does the hardware
that's
connect?
that's kind of.
Well, I guess the hardware.
Oh yeah, it absolutely does.
Oh, what,
There's a shutdown signal.
Oh, okay.
Yep. If I were to disconnect one of my controllers right now, it would just simply drift away, linearly interpolated, and just kind of
Yeah.
go off into the great beyond. It's got some downsides, but overall, for the session it does exist in, it's perfectly usable, and it for sure beats out the experience on Steam VR on these cross-platform bits. And yeah, it's got those limitations baked in. Fairly big one, is solvable if anyone in particular is looking to stop by, rewrite some of the infrastructure. But on a for
It is a
Oh,
C++
yeah.
code base, right?
Mostly C, with some C++ sprinkled on top when they can't otherwise help it.
And how's the documentation on it? Like, if you wanted to learn how it works under the hood, how to tweak things.
Pretty good. They actually use comments to generate docs on the source code as it's designed. So if you do want to look through that, they have all that available on their website, and you can peek through and see what's what, like how things connect, which functions touch what, and hopefully from there it should be fairly easy to figure out what you want to add, how you want to add it. Oh, they do have a Discord as well, so if you did want to ask particular questions of anyone involved in the project as it exists now, you can go for it. I can pass some invites out if anyone wants to give it a shot.
Yeah. I mean, like
Yeah.
we can post them around and stuff. Is there any other limitations you think are worth mentioning, or?
Open Composite does need some particular development. It works for some things. VRC was kind of a number one target of the app, since it's so. it's a very big element.
Yeah.
So it was kind of one of those things that was, hey, we got to have that. We for sure got to have that. And there were a few missing pieces of the implementation, notably finger tracking on the index. We were able to pass that through, and the full body track in particular.
So you had to like design your own version for that.
Yeah, we're using a forked piece of it here, so yeah, and I think that kind of does it for the talk.
Yeah.
No other questions or anything?
I have one actually. I might be interested in trying out to hack like on the hardware side of things, hook into Monado or some other runtime. And I'm not sure where I should get started, like looking through documentation or understanding how the system works for this.
Stop by. Give me a message on Discord. I've actually got the groups available if you would like to take a peek through. There's several involved. We have, in particular, the Linux VR Adventures. It's more user-facing. Anyone who wants to use it can use it. So you can just pick it up, start it, you can ask questions about setup. You can ask questions about hacking. We actually have a fair amount of developers inside of there working with it right now. And then there's the Monado group. The Open Composite group has their own. Yeah, and they're excellent places to ask questions as well. If you did want to involve yourself with those projects, I mean.
Okay. Wait, what's your Discord handle?
It should
Can I
be
ask?
available in my
I
bio
don't think we're
here.
pinged in messages.
Yeah, you can see me in there.
Yeah, I think you. Well, are you in the MetaGen Discord? Like, I mean, I can also share it with everyone. Like, any links you wanna share, you can send it to me.
Oh yeah, totally. I'll send you some afters. You can post those for anyone who wants to see it, and yeah, we can see how they like it. And especially feedback is big. We're trying to get feedback on the orchestration GUI so that we can actually figure out what we need to add, what needs to be improved, and frankly, contributors are extremely welcome. Most importantly, we need people contributing to the project to improve it, because all of this is available now. It just needs improvement. Is the major limiting factor.
Well, hopefully we can get some
You said
people here.
you said you were selling stuff. Was that you were selling slimes? Did you say earlier?
Oh yes, I do make them. Yep. I do.
Okay. So what's the price of them normally, or does it depend?
I don't know. I have not checked their website in a bit. I wouldn't know their retail pricing.
Okay.
It's pretty good. It's better than most full body solutions, especially for the track points you get.
Okay. You know what you sell them for, though, obviously.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
To be disclosed at a later date, or
What is this topic?
Yeah, I've got them available. 34.
Doesn't like the city. What was the topic, or what is
okay. How many do you need to
thinking
buy?
about?
Oh,
Is it like-
however many you want.
On like Monado and
Okay.
extensions to it, basically like the open source.
Oh, cool. Monado is awesome.
Hey, thank you. I'm using it now, actually.
I haven't
to,
actually
play the
used
game.
it yet. Still using
Oh,
Steam
jeez.
VR and
Okay.
my ALVR, but I've heard of people using it with Monado. Bring up on stuff.
Oh yeah. It's functioning. Well, I appear to. Here's one of the downsides. If you run out of battery,
Oh.
it does get you twisted up. So yeah, there's restarts necessary if ever you run out of battery. We're looking to circumvent those issues.
If
in the
you
future.
are able to turn the device back on, it doesn't fix its position, or does it create a new device each
Nope.
time?
We're missing hot plug, so anything like that is out. I got the tracker in my hand here, and this guy is not coming back.
Oh, you also cannot turn the tracker on while it's running. So it just takes the device when it starts up. I see.
Yeah.
It's a limitation of the runtime. It only builds it up because the only concern from out of the gate was getting hardware working, not getting hardware reestablished with a connection. And you know, turning off hardware wasn't the big deal.
Yeah, so you mentioned that as one of the main limitations, but
Yeah, as far as everything else goes.
Is it possible to use with a Quest, ALVR, or something like that?
Yes, we have something called Wyvern, which is a wireless driver that you can use with it. We have several people actually using Wyvern on their Pico already to play the game. And if you want, we have an orchestrator GUI that you can load up. It downloads all the source code for you, configures it, and it will even install the APK to your headset if you have that turned on.
Okay. So, but it's a different protocol from ALVR. Like, does it still do all of the stuff ALVR does? Like it has really good motion compensation. Like it does like all the reprojection.
Oh yeah.
Bunch of stuff with
Monado
audio
has its own
forwarding.
built-in, reprojection.
No, but it does it on
Python driver
the
does full
device,
audio.
I think. Okay.
Oh, Yeah, it does. It does. There's motion compensation built in. It's going to have less configuration options because it is a more primitive driver. It's much more bare bones. So expect functionality, but not as much tweaking as you would probably want at the moment. The big thing that we're holding out for is simply getting developers in the door and working with it. And if they want to add that functionality, please do. We are pining for developers.
So, Wyvern VR is what do I say? Oh, there.
Yep.
I'm having trouble
It'll
googling
be,
this. How do you spell it?
Okay.
Yeah, how you
In fact,
I tried
here,
WYVERN VR. I googled that, and I got a VR demo I played like 4 years ago, which was kind of a little bit
my
fun,
God,
but
okay.
that wasn't the one I was looking for.
Let me throw it on my tracker. Probably should have charged it a little better.
Am I spelling it wrong, or are you not on Google?
Oh, we're ooh, interesting. It's on Google. Let me see.
What do I search for? Give me a search term. That does work.
Tell you what. Fact.
Yeah, also don't find it.
We make do.
GitHub projects usually get ranked pretty highly on Google. I'm surprised there's no GitHub project I can find that I'm looking for first.
Oh, it will have one. We don't have
Okay,
any.
maybe I just must
UI.
have spelled it wrong. Could you spell, or could you tell me what to Google, or just something?
Yeah, here. It is WIVRN. Wyvern.
Did you say I?
Yep.
Oh, so it's Wyvern, but the Y's are I's. Okay.
Yes.
W-I-V...
I did not. That's an important detail.
Wait,
Oh, okay.
W-I-V-R-N?
Well,
Yep.
Google tries to spell check. Still doesn't work. Is it VR or XR?
XR. It is XR.
Nope, not finding it. Can you spell it again?
Yep.
What's the URL?
WIVRN.
I'm.
Oh, it'll be
Oh, not VERN. It's VRN.
Yep, VRN.
Oh, okay. So it's very different from the dragon type beast. Okay.
Yes. Oh yeah. Only tangentially. Huh.
I mean,
Let's see.
I'm still not finding it.
Is
I'm having a lot of trouble with this URL.
It's like part of Monado, or is it something else?
It is kind of partially integrated, but it's mostly out of tree at the current moment.
I see
Oh, so it's in a branch somewhere.
about it, but like...
Oh, okay. Yes, I found that too. Okay, so you have to go through the Reddit post. There's no way to find it directly.
Yeah.
What is this
still
link to?
fairly,
So links to Nova's
small.
Twitter. Nova probably
I-
writes about this stuff because they're.
If you'll
I think I found the GitHub.
if you'll allow me, I could send you some links that you could actually throw to everyone on like the Somnium group if you wanna.
Well,
You just spell it out too. Just read it out to me. It's fine too. Like is it a GitHub URL? Just tell me the username.
Yes. We have a GitLab where Rex2
Oh,
is
GitLab.
hosted.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the username?
The official GitLab.
Just spell it out.
Gabmus, GABMUS, and it will be the Rex2 repository.
Rex2 is the name. Oh, so it's not Wyvern. It's Rex2. Okay.
Yes. Rex2
I
is
see.
simply the
Explain.
orchestrator. It will
That
download
explains
it for
why
you.
it's ungoogleable. It's-
This is very new. This is very hot. Like it is.
Alright.
It's not been long. Let's put it that way.
2 weeks. Oh, interesting. Okay. And this takes care of the Monado driver. And then you said there's also an application that has to be installed, or is that also in this repository? The other endpoint.
much.
If it's not using ALVR.
Pretty much. Everything is
Ooh,
Rex2.
is this
everything-
AGPL? Oh, shoot.
Yes.
Is
that
Wyvern
a-
made by
is
someone
that-
called Murmur?
Is in
M-U-M-U?
Nope. Monado is actually MIT, so it's free to use for any purpose that
Kind of
you want.
a... Yeah. Interesting. I wonder why they did that.
Yeah,
That's kind of a downside of this, I think. What is ALVR?
This is just the configuration utility. So
Oh, it's the configuration utility.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I'm
So,
trying to just understand what all this stuff is. I'm still new to this area.
you're good. You're good. Yeah. It's any questions over here?
Hmm.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Where?
I can share the links on our Discord.
Yeah.
I think it'll be easier to find.
Okay. I'll
Maybe
compile.
send them to me or something.
Okay. So this is Rex 2. There's quite a lot because a lot of this is fairly preliminary. But if you did want to start hacking on this, I've actually got some repo links for my own particular forks that support full body. So if you have these Vive trackers, you can throw them directly at the game and have fun.
Nice. Yeah, I also invited you to our Discord if you wanna like post them there. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
We're in-
That'll do.
Oh, okay, so it's XYTOVL is talking a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Somebody. Open OVR.
Oh yes, that is Open Composite. That's the translation.
Oh, is that what Open
layer
Composite is
that-
called?
Yep.
Okay,
It's kind of
so it's
the
not
old repo
Oculus.
name.
It's not. Okay.
No, it is definitely not. It was originally actually intended purely to translate OpenVR to Oculus API, but then they changed it to XR as soon as XR rolled out. It was one of those mid-switch design decisions, and it frankly was incredibly nice that they actually did decide to switch that.
Well, I see cargo.
Hmm.
Is this Rex 2 on Rust?
Yes. We are trying to build out as much of the environment as possible on Rust because we do like the concurrency and the memory safety. Having that built in and just making everything bulletproof is, whew, it's going to be needed.
So Rex 2 is the okay. Wait, it says UI for building, configure, and run. Oh, okay. So that's what Rex 2 is. Is that?
Mm.
Okay.
Yep. Do you want me to put some of these in the info channel, or perhaps?
Well, I linked you to the
There.
VR channel, so you can maybe like push this there. I mean, you can also put it on share your project. I mean, either of those will work.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
That'll work.
either that or the VR channel. Yeah.
Here. Aha.
I said there was one of these sort of things that was under MIT license. Oh, look.
Monado itself is under the MIT license. If you want to hack that for
Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
purpose, it is yours to hack.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like something that works with the Quest. Kind of what I'm looking for.
Oh, yes. Here, I will get you that.
Android.
So yeah, this Rex 2 is not the thing.
Oh, this is so the Rex 2 is just the GUI. Oh, so Rex 2 is the GUI that automates it. It's separate from
Yes.
Wyvern,
Yes.
So where is Vive?
but it uses Wyvern. I'm still really
does.
lost. I'm really confused about all this because Gabma says Gabma says Wyvern replaces Monado for the Quest.
It does.
If you can use
Wyvern
Rex
uses a
2
fork of Monado.
It's a fork of Monado.
Mhm.
Oh. Ah, that's the part. So Rex 2 is the GUI that configures this Monado fork.
Yes.
But I still haven't... Okay, so let me look at what links you posted, because I still didn't find the URL for the actual fork. That's what I was trying to figure out. Like, Rex 2 is just one part of the process.
Oh, yes.
That's the part I was missing. So I'm having so much trouble finding that stuff. You know, I don't know if it's true in GitLab, but if it's a fork, Google's like GitHub actually blocks forks from being indexed by search engines, which is really stupid.
What?
Wow.
And GitLab might do the same thing. Well, the issue is basically a lot of projects have like hundreds of forks, and so if they allow forks to be like indexed, then it just muddies the search results.
Okay.
But it's really
I've,
frustrating because if it's actually marked as a fork, then it just nobody can find it unless you like have a link to it somewhere.
Most of those forks
That is
nuts.
never accessed. Like I thought a search engine will.
Well, that's the thing. The search engine should be able to figure that out. Maybe the search engine is what's removing them. I don't know, but that's an experience, and people actually
Yeah, I
send
just added you on-
tickets to
tried
GitHub
adding
to
you on
unparent the
Discord.
fork specifically
Oh, cool.
so it can be
Okay.
indexed by the search engines.
So
Let me toss you in there.
So it's possible that's why I can't find it.
same username
No,
as
no.
this. So
There are the links.
Cool. Yeah, there you are.
Oh,
So,
which channel should I be looking in?
Share your project.
look at
Oh, share your project.
purchasing
Okay,
information if need be, or like
found it.
how many you need to buy.
as many as
There's
you
a good
please. I don't put any hard limits.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah, Google
limits.
just
It's
doesn't
bare
find this.
minimum. I guess free is the
If you
BEM.
want.
It's not a fork either.
I
Just
would recommend
where's that?
5. I can ship you 3, but since they're IMU, they need more to produce a better experience.
What's IMU meaning?
They're
Because
blind
IMU
as
is the
that, and they can
trackers.
only sense spatial orientation.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
The-
So they are
There is
not
like
positional.
phonics that-
Every single one of these is 3 DOF, and they emulate.
Okay, well that's
essentially,
I think
and then
I see
use
it.
that to figure out which way everything is pointing. So
Okay.
you have to throw at a bare minimum, I would say 5 to get a competent experience with the 3.5 track.
Okay. And you place them
You-
strategic locations on the body somehow.
Yes. They have recommended locations that you can throw them to if you want. Check the Slime VR site. They will
That's
be able to
basic.
get you
Oh,
more
I see. It
information
combines a
than
bunch of software
Discord,
together.
too.
Okay. All right.
They'll get you
Well,
covered.
it uses Monado GLM boost free type harf buzz. That sort of integrates all this stuff into one application.
GLM is something
Oh, yes.
like encoding or something. No, it's OpenGL mathematics. That was good. Nothing. Never mind.
No, yeah, just a matrix library. No, the thing is, X264 is GPL. Probably why they're doing it like. Okay.
And yeah, it's for this particular stuff you can get up and running with a known working config. What headset do you have?
Me, Oculus Quest.
Oculus Quest. Yeah, we have a Quest in there. So
The one.
have you
Yeah,
up and
Quest
running
1.
with the
That's-
Quest
that's-
1?
I can't really use it for VR
Ooh.
chat anymore.
Okay. Are you a
It's a.
citizen
So I'm
developer?
using. I mean, I have some seasoning. I'm just trying to get this. I've been using this on the Steam Deck because
Okay.
I don't know. I just have this
To get a
portable
real
VR setup.
competent
It's Steam Deck
experience.
and Oculus. So
Okay,
Something like
you're
that.
an interesting case here. I don't believe Wyvern has Quest 1 support yet. However, Gallister added Pico 4
How does
and
it-
3.
how can
So-
it not support Quest 1? I thought they're pretty
We
similar
just didn't have
architecturally.
we just didn't have anyone who had a Quest 1 who would actually be able to test
So it
it
might
on one.
work. It might just not be tested.
Could be. I'm genuinely not
Okay.
sure. Do ask
Okay.
questions. We have access to all of the developers of the software native. So if you're
Yeah,
interested
I-
and say support isn't there,
I see
you could
Gammas is
help
in
bring it.
Discord and stuff, so I could always just message them. Yeah.
Gabmus is just developing the Rex officially. He's basically like beelining Rex development right now.
Okay.
And I think the person who runs the Wyvern repo itself, they're actually quite responsive on the Git issues. If you wanted to pull anything
Okay.
up. And I think they
Okay.
are available on Discord as well, but I might be wrong about that. So
Still somehow wish this were done as a Monado driver instead of a whole thing. I don't know how. feasible that is.
would have to get just kind of that stuff mainlined back into Monado. I know they have some support, but for the most part, Wyvern remains a fork.
Uh, Monado officially is free desktop, so probably a bit of it's like a big organization, probably a bit of a process to get everything merged back.
Oh yes.
But the real issue is this GPL, because as long as it's GPL, nothing's gonna get merged back. That's the killer.
Oh no.
I don't know. I wish there was something to do about that.
It's
Monado's not GPL. It didn't say MIT when I looked at it. What's MIT?
Oh, it guaranteed is MIT. MIT
What?
is free for whatever.
What is MIT? When you say it, what is it?
Monado itself.
What are you referring to? Yeah, no, I wasn't talking about Monado. I was talking about Wyvern. Since you said if that were to get merged back into Monado, that's not possible if it's GPL. Monado can't accept any code from this. Yeah, Monado's not GPL, just like you just said. You can't mix them. That's why there's such a big issue with that. Yeah, so if Wyvern's GPL, they've basically completely isolated themselves from the Monado community, and that's the thing I was worried about.
Yeah.
Because that means basically this project's a dead end in some regards, or it's going to be big enough to develop into its own thing. So that's kind of, I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to be negative. I'm just I'm trying to look at the direction to spend my time and where to go forward. And if this project is doomed because it can't be merged back in, that's a little bit of a concern for me. If it's a separate thing, that's different. If it can be its own driver, then it wouldn't be as big an issue because it wouldn't have to get merged back into Monado. But since this is one big
basically how they're using
integrated
it
thing.
now.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. But if it's fork of Monado, it includes Monado and a driver, then it's now going on a separate track. It's like we're doing our own thing. Anyway.
They are trying to. Last I saw, they were trying to do something in the repo there. So, if you did want to, if you did want to, there was some kind of merge request to get a basic Wyvern bring up.
Sorry, I hate to ask questions and hop out. I was supposed to leave 10 minutes ago. I can still make it.
Oh, you're good.
I have to hop off.
At me later. So hey, yeah. Got this going.
Yeah.
Went on a little bit longer than intended, but I hope it was worth it.
Well, it was. Well, I think it was very interesting. Well, I'm just gonna officially so stop the video, but yeah. Thank you everyone for coming and thank you so much for the interesting stuff that you're working on. I hope we can make more people interested in contributing to these things and joining this kind of projects. Yeah, because I really think we need open source alternative and also more focus on runtime operating system kind of level stuff for XR. So yeah, thank you, and yeah, I'll be sharing this this around to see if more people see it. So yeah, just
okay, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Add me on Discord. I can provide any details we do set up. I answer questions. It would also be better to ask publicly for questions because I don't have a wireless headset. I have not used one, so I'm very unfamiliar with those. I have used one. I lied. But I don't actively have one right now. So you can ask any questions you have in the Linux Adventures VR. I will post an invite in the MetaGen group for everyone involved. And yeah, hopefully you can get started, try it out, tell us what you think, and more importantly, maybe open some issues, contribute a little if there's anything in particular that's kind of sticky that you feel could be addressed as low-hanging fruit. We would very much appreciate that.
Yeah, more people should get involved. I'll also share this with there's a Rust XR group that's started very recently. So
I think I know who's involved with that.
but you know Malek, and well you probably
Malik? No.
Oh, so Malek was the one who
Nova.
started. Yeah, I knew you were gonna know Nova. I think everyone knows
But I
Nova.
keep seeing Nova everywhere.
Yeah, like
Never.
in
Okay.
this kind of community. So Nova is obviously there,
Nice.
but it was actually started by Malek. So if you don't know them, you should. Yeah, they're also very cool.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, I'd
Wait.
love to meet. Oh
Wait,
my God.
were we
But
talking about
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, were you talking about like a phone for XR OS? It was made kind of like
Yes.
with Monado. Were you talking about something with Stardust?
The end result here is yes, we would like to use Stardust as the actual full OS. Like, I'm talking a whole new interface for applications. Like, Blender is a really good example because it's a spatial design suite, essentially. And it would work best in a spatial environment, we think. We just need to figure out the interface, and to figure out the interface, we just need people to try new things and see what works for them, what doesn't work for them. We need something other than this laser pointer thing. This laser pointer thing is terrible. And everyone does it for absolutely everything. Keyboards, a mouse pointer, moving stuff. It's good for some things, it's not good for everything. We shouldn't repeat this for everything. So yeah, we're getting the interface troubles worked out, and we're trying to produce an environment from which you can build Stardust from within a headset. Gallister is attempting to
kind of build Stardust applications, or what do you mean?
we
So you won't
want
need
to
to
make
fall
sure.
back to desktop or anything else.
Yep, you have the headset on the whole time, and you get to build Stardust. The number one thing we need as a next stage is Gallister is in the process of porting WLX Overlay, which is a Linux XS Overlay copy, kind of. It does exceed it in some areas. It's actually quite nice to use. But we're going to have that as kind of like a virtual desktop, so you can assemble a virtual workstation in front of you, and you can actually have a hopefully a pass-through cutout of your desk and your mouse, so you can use your setup as you intend from within the headset, and then you can just reach out with your hand trackers, start grabbing stuff, and testing it immediately.
Oh, that's nice.
So-
It will be like hot loading, or kind of like the code.
So
Yep,
basically mixed reality.
Yes,
Well, but
we're gonna.
Which is amazing. Like building a mixed reality.
Yep.
I mean, I don't need that. I'm using my computer right now.
We do have a desktop environment if you would like to do it from a desktop environment. It's just not all patterns make sense to develop on a desktop and then to flip on your headset and then start using them. Sometimes you just need to be able to iterate with it right in front of your face and reach out and grab it and try it and spin it and move it.
I mean,
Whatever you have to do.
I'm a big NES fan, so this is like totally what I want to see. So.
Well, yeah, share it around. See if people like it. There's quite a lot I haven't said about it. I could drone on and on. There is very much so, but you will get acquainted if you just simply sit and soak like a sponge, because it is coming fast.
On that note, I'm gonna stop the recording actually.